Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the A segment of episode 58 of Codename Kids Next Door, Operation V.I.R.U.S. We begin this segment with number 74.239 arriving at a Kids Next Door treehouse located underwater. Shortly after number 74.239 arrives, alarms go off in the treehouse, and number 20,000 warns the Kids Next Door scientists in the treehouse that an intruder has arrived. It doesn't take very long for this intruder to reach the room where the Kids Next Door scientists are currently located in, and we see that the intruder is wearing a scuba version of battle-ready armor. Number 74.239 quickly pieces together who the intruder is and why the intruder is angry at the Kids Next Door scientists. Number 74.239 tells the intruder that it's only fair that the teens be infected with the virus that the Kids Next Door scientists have created because the teen ninjas created chickenpox and tried to infect kids with chickenpox. The intruder demands the antidote for the virus, but number 74.239 refuses to cooperate with the intruder. But he quickly changes his mind when the intruder threatens to open a chamber with a sticker that has the Skull and Crossbones logo on it. Once again, the intruder demands the antidote for the virus, but number 74.239 reveals that number 5 has the antidote. Number 5 arrived in this treehouse shortly before number 74.239 arrived. The intruder doesn't mind hearing that number 5 has the antidote right now, and the intruder's helmet retracts, revealing that the intruder is none other than Cree Lincoln, the former number 11. Cree comments along the lines about how number 5 having the antidote isn't much of an issue because she has some pretty good ideas about where number 5 might be. Understandably so, since Cree is number 5's older sister. But then Cree uses her laser ray gun weapon to hit the chamber with the Skull and Crossbones logo, and then Cree leaves after doing so. Number 74.239 calls Cree a fool for opening up the chamber, and then all the Kids Next Door operatives in this underwater treehouse retreat, while also activating an emergency shutdown for this particular treehouse. The next scene takes us to the Sector V treehouse, where we see 4 of the 5 Sector V operatives have gathered together for a meeting. Number 5 is the only Sector V operative who is not present right now. Number 1 explains to number 2, number 3, and number 4 that some other Kids Next Door operatives have done a reconnaissance mission lately, and these Kids Next Door operatives have discovered that the prom will be held in the gym of McClintock High School. However, the Kids Next Door believe that prom stands for pubescent retaliation on munchkins, or something along those lines anyway. So the Sector V operatives, and possibly other Kids Next Door operatives for that matter, are going to plan something at the prom. Or yes, the Kids Next Door operatives have a plan to attack the teens at the prom. So after the meeting, number 2, number 3, and number 4 head off for reconnaissance of their own relating to their preparations for their mission regarding prom. And shortly after number 2, number 3, and number 4 leave, Cree invades the Sector V treehouse, demanding to know where number 5 is. Number 1 tries to surprise Cree with his own weapons, or he tries to surprise attack Cree with all the weapons that he's hidden that he has hidden. But Cree manages to anticipate and knock away number one's weapons, knock away or destroy them anyway. And eventually number one is just left with a comb for some reason, but Cree still ends up destroying or knocking away the comb and demanding to know where number five is once again. Number one claims that number five is somewhere in the treehouse, but he's not going to tell Cree. And Cree says that she will turn the treehouse upside down if number one doesn't tell her what she wants to know. Number one responds with the yes. Number one says go ahead and try, or something along those lines at least. And then we cut to a later scene which shows Cree literally turned the Sector V treehouse, and the Uno home for that matter, upside down. Number one admits that he didn't think Cree was actually going to do that. So Cree pulls out many weapons and once again demands to know where number five is. Number one says that number five is supposed to be performing aerial reconnaissance with number two right now. Or yes, she's supposed to be helping number two with aerial reconnaissance. That's what number one says. Cree says that number one better be right for his sake, or else Cree will return. So Cree flies off to go find number two, and she's hoping number five in addition to that. So, yes, the next scene shows number two is riding in the cloud cover, a 2x4 technology vehicle that's disguised, that's meant to resemble a cloud for disguise reasons. So number two is riding the cloud cover while going around McClintock High School. But then Cree arrives, destroys the cloud cover, and number two has his parachute out. Cree keeps destroying parts of the parachute, demanding to know where number five is. And number two admits that number five was supposed to help him with aerial reconnaissance, but she never showed up. Number two suspects or guesses that maybe number three and number four know where number five is. And yes, Cree does stop number two from falling, and then she drops him shortly before, just a little before the ground. Like, here's the ground, and Cree drops number two when he's very close to the ground, but number two is still screaming because he thinks he's still falling. Cree calls number two a dork after number two realizes he's already on the ground and flies off. So still near McClintock High School, we see number three and number four are in a tree right now. Yes, it looks like a regular tree on the outside, but it's actually a base where they use a telescope yes, they're using a telescope to see the preparations for the prom. But then Cree arrives, or that's right, number two gave Cree the coordinates for where number three and number four were during Cree's interrogation. So that's how Cree knows where they are. But yes, Cree arrives and she rips open the undercover tree hideout, demanding to know where number five is. Number four admits that they haven't seen number five all day. Cree believes and insists that they're just lying, but number three reiterates what number four said. They really haven't seen number five at all today. And then number three tries to remember when was the last time she saw her, and during number three's rambling, Cree realizes that number three and number four are telling the truth. But Cree is still angry and saying that they're wasting her time. But then a timer goes off. Yes, Cree has a timer with her, and the timer goes off, and Cree comments that she's run out of time, and then she flies off. So then we head to the Lincoln home next. Cree retracts her battle-ready armor, and she enters her home, where she's greeted by her parents. Cree inquires both her mom and her dad about if they've seen number five, but they say that they haven't seen number five today. And Cree runs off to her room upset. And it's after Cree enters her room, that's when number five arrives. And Cree is angry when she sees number five, and she quickly tries to attack number five. Number five defends herself and tries to talk to Cree, but Cree refuses to hear number five out. So number 5 and Cree are fighting with each other, although they stop and pretending they're getting along when both the Lincoln parents go to Cree's room to check on how Cree is doing. So yes, when the Lincoln parents are present, they pretend that they're getting along, but when they leave, the fighting resumes, and the fight actually takes them up to the roof of their house. And number 5 manages to number 5 tries to convince Cree to stop attacking and actually listen to what number 5 has to say. But Cree refuses to listen to what number 5 has to say, blaming the kids next door for the virus. And then number 5 uses that comment to say what she wants to say to Cree. Yes, number 5 uses that comment to lead into what she was trying to tell Cree. Number 5 got the antidote from the underwater kids next door treehouse to use the antidote on Cree, or to help Cree out, and Cree is surprised to hear this. Number 5 says that she thinks that the kids next door scientists went too far, infecting Cree with the virus just before prom night, and we find out that the virus is an unpoppable zit. Well, unpoppable not counting the antidote, but but you get the idea. And Cree is surprised to hear that number 5 would try to help her, Cree, out after Cree antagonized the kids next door for some time now. Number 5 says that they may be arch enemies, but they're also sisters, or she says something along those lines anyway. So she says she tells Cree that they're going to see if the antidote will be effective. So Cree pushes back her hair, and we do see the unpoppable zit, and well, it's not the most pleasant of sights, to say the least. Number 5 comments along the lines about how the kids next door scientists were quite thorough with this virus. So number 5 applies the antidote on Cree, on the unpoppable zit. And then we cut to a later scene. The prom is about to begin, and we see that Cree exits a limo. She's wearing a prom dress, and the zit is gone now. Her hair is in a different style, and we see that she's going to prom with Maurice, who's wearing a suit or a tux. And Cree tells Maurice that she thinks the kids next door aren't so bad after all, because she thought the kids next door would ruin prom night for her, but she says something along the lines about how prom night isn't going to be ruined for her after all. After Maurice and Cree enter the gym of McClintock High School, we see number 1 and number 2 emerging from some nearby bushes, and number 1 has a walkie-talkie with him, or a communicator, and he tells the other kids next door operatives present to prepare the unpoppable zit cannon. And then we pan back a little, and we see that, yes, the kids next door have brought many large unpoppable zit cannons. Or yes, there's some large weapons just outside of the high school. These are the unpoppable zit cannons. And number 1 tells the kids next door operatives present to prepare these cannons. And that's how we end this segment. So this segment and its sibling segment stand out because, a detail that Tom Warburton mentioned in one of his blog posts. Yes, Tom Warburton commented in one of his blog posts about how both segments of episode 58, this segment and its sibling segment, are unique because they tie in together in some way, but still are mostly their own stories. To be more specific, but without giving too much away for the sake of the sibling segment for this segment, I will comment this much. Cree's actions at the kids next door underwater treehouse in this segment are what caused the events of this segment's sibling segment. So yes, when Cree, that's what Tom Warburton was referring to in his blog post. He was referring to how Cree's actions when she opened up the container in the underwater treehouse, or the chamber, yes. When Cree opened up the chamber in the underwater treehouse, this led to events that will unfold in the sibling segment for this segment. And yes, I do have to agree with Tom Warburton. This episode, episode 58, really stood out to me when I first watched it because of the fact that, yes, an event that happened, or a minor scene in this segment, ended up becoming the main focus of the sibling segment. Now, true, Codename Kids Next Door is a series that is known for having serialized elements or having strong continuity. We've had major storylines throughout seasons, not just within a single season, but even spanning multiple seasons. And there have been some other instances where a detail from one entry would come back in a later entry. Off the top of my head, number one, noticing the babies in the nursery in the hospital, in Operation Hospital, eventually led to the events of Operation Diaper. That's an example off the top of my head. But in this case, this is a case where, this is a case where two segments for the same episode are connected to each other, but still mostly self-contained. Or yes, Tom Warburton did comment in his blog post along the lines about how you could still watch both segments on their own merits, but they still tie into each other, and you definitely get more out of the episode when you watch both segments together. And I'm inclined to agree with Tom Warburton with that regard. So that was definitely a cool detail. And yes, Cree's actions towards that chamber in the underwater treehouse becomes an example of small role, big impact with regards to this segment's sibling segment. Now, besides that, though, this segment also stands out because one could say that Cree was actually the viewpoint character for this segment. Cree was the character that we, the viewers, were following along for the majority of this segment. And this is one of those few times where the series does focus on, one of those segments where the viewpoint character or the focus character of an entry is a villain or villains, rather than being one of the Kids Next Door operatives, or current Kids Next Door operatives, I should say, because Cree was a Kids Next Door operative in the past. Some other examples include Season 2's Operation Trip. One could say that the interesting twins from Beneath the Mountain were really the viewpoint characters for that segment. And Season 4's Operation Flush featured the Toilinator as the viewpoint character, and other villains were also given the main focus. Or Toilinator had the main focus if you had to pick one villain, but multiple villains also shared the spotlight in Operation Flush, and the Kids Next Door operatives, Sector V operatives or otherwise, didn't appear until the end of that segment. So, yes, this segment definitely stands out for featuring a villain as the viewpoint character, and a teen villain on top of that, Cree. And yes, so throughout the course of the segment, Cree was trying to find number 5, and then we find out that number 5 actually acquired the antidote for the unpoppable zit because she wanted to help Cree. And yes, from what I can tell, most fans do agree that it was rather heartwarming of number 5 to help her older sister out, even though the Lincoln sisters are arch enemies. Most fans seem to agree that it was a heartwarming moment. However, I have seen some fans actually argue about something with regards to this segment. Number 5 comments that she thinks that the Kids Next Door scientists went too far, infecting Cree with the unpoppable V.I.R.U.S before Prom. And I've seen some fans do agree with number 5's point on that, but I have also seen some fans that disagree with number 5. Some fans actually agreed with number 74.239 about how it was fair that the teens be infected with the unpoppable zit virus, because number 74.239 did mention how, in the segment, number 74.239 mentioned how the teen ninjas created chickenpox and tried to infect kids with chickenpox, and some kids have been infected with chickenpox. So number 74.239 thought it was only fair that the kids next door retaliated after what the teen ninjas have done. So yes, the debate seems to come from the debate I've noticed between some fans comes from whether or not some fans view Cree as having moral myopia or not. For those unfamiliar, TV Tropes describes moral myopia along the lines of being a form of hypocrisy that essentially amounts to it's acceptable if I do it, but it's unforgivable if you do it. Something like that. So, yeah, some fans would argue that Cree being angry at the kids next door for giving her the unpoppable zit virus was a case of her having moral myopia, considering the fact that the teen ninjas had infected kids with chickenpox and tried to do so to a much larger degree in Operation Maurice. And some fans also pointed out that Cree actually created the chickenpox canon to cause more widespread spreading of chickenpox. So again, like I said, that's a debate I've noticed quite a bit with this segment. Some fans agreed with number 5 about how the kids next door scientists went too far, infecting the virus just before prom, while other fans agreed with number 74.239's point that it's only fair because it's retaliation for the teen ninjas instigating the viral warfare with the chickenpox. So yeah, that's a debate I still see happen to this day with some fans. So otherwise, other details are Mrs. Lincoln appears in this segment. If I'm not mistaken, this might be Mrs. Lincoln's last appearance in the series. I'll have to see in later entries when I rewatch them for the recap and thoughts videos, refresh my memory if Mrs. Lincoln appears or not. But yes, Mrs. Lincoln did make a return in this segment, and Maurice had an appearance. Maurice, number 9, who is an undercover agent for the kids next door, being a teens next door operative. Maurice does appear, but he has a cameo appearance towards the end. And yes, I do know some fans were confused about why Maurice was going to prom, a high school prom, because Maurice had only just turned 13, and he's younger than, or yes, Maurice became 13 years old more recently compared to number 274, aka Chad Dixon, who is still in middle school. So why would Maurice be going to a high school prom is something I've seen some fans wonder. Now, I think there's an easy explanation for that, and I say this going from personal experience, but it's not unheard of for a high school student to have a +1 for prom who normally wouldn't go to prom under normal circumstances, or a non-high school student or a younger high school student, or so yes, I think it's a pretty simple explanation that Maurice is there because he was invited, being Cree's +1. I think that's a reasonable explanation, or I think, yes, that kind of easily explains why Maurice would be attending a high school prom, even though he just turned 13, or he turned 13 more recently compared to number 274, who is still a middle schooler. So that's a quick way to explain that for some people who might have been confused about that. Oh, and with regards to the ending of the segment, yes, I know that kind of goes along with that debate earlier between the points about the unpoppable zit virus. I know some people have definitely wondered, were the kids next door going to go too far? Was that considered too far to use the unpoppable zit cannons? Or was it justified because of what the teen ninjas have done? That kind of encourages that debate that I mentioned earlier too. But another detail about that ending is some fans do feel bad about number 9 because number 9 isn't actually on the teen ninja side. He's merely an undercover agent. But some fans have figured number 9 probably knew the risks that would happen pretending that he's on the side of the enemies. And yeah, we never do get to see how the segment, we never do get to see what happens, or we never see the results of the kids next door's attack on prom. So having said that, though, I imagine that there might be some fan works out there that try to fill in those blanks. But yes, we don't get an answer for the end of this segment, but we do get an answer regarding Cree's actions at the underwater treehouse. Like I mentioned earlier, Cree's actions at the underwater treehouse do carry over into the siblings segment, so we'll be sure to talk about that in that segment's recap and thoughts videos. So, otherwise, yes, that was a bit on the longer side, but I definitely felt there was a lot of details to cover for this particular segment. A viewpoint, or an entry where the viewpoint character is a villain. Some details about two segments being connected but still standing on their own within the same episode. And like I said, some heartwarming moments, but also a debate that I've noticed quite a bit with some fans. So there we go for now. So as of this video, we've now discussed the A segment of episode 58 of Codename Kids Next Door on this channel. Take care, and until next time.